Welcome back to another episode of Voices in Health and Wellness. This is the podcast where we explore the people, ideas and innovations shaping the future of care. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Greenland, and today we're diving into the world of aesthetics, integrity-driven practice and female empowerment with someone who embodies all three. Joining us today is Raquel Merlini, a registered nurse, certified aesthetic nurse specialist and founder of Our Skin Aesthetics. With over 14 years in the plastics and aesthetics industry, Raquel's career is a testament to clinical excellence and purpose-driven leadership. From injectables and laser resurfacing to mentorship and scholarship activities, she's built a brand rooted in compassion, ethics, and empowerment. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to the show, Raquel, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to continue having dialogues with people who are passionate about the industry and health.
So perhaps we could start a little bit with your journey. How have you ended up doing what you do? What's been your journey to get there, and what kind of inspired you?
I think I was always born for this. My aunt was a hairdresser, and she would schlep me to the beauty salon with her, and I would spend most of my days playing there and either, getting my hair done or playing with makeup. And then that kind of fell into, if I'd have sleepovers in middle school and grade school, I'd be making homemade DIY face masks out of oatmeal and, constantly trying to figure out. I put a girlfriend on a diet one year she wanted to get, we were cheerleading and she wanted to lose weight. So I put together a system for her. And then when I was 17, I ended up working for Clinique, big brand, Estee Lauder brand. And I learned a lot about aging, system selling, taking care of your skin, being proactive and preventative, as well as just corrective. And then my journey took me into being a stay-at-home mom for many years. And then we had a really bad economy crash here in about 2006 through 10. And I ended up finding myself going to aesthetic school, just trying to reinvent myself and look for an income to help my family at the time. So I ended up falling in love with aesthetics. And then from there, that segued me as an esthetician into working for a plastic surgeon. And he said, I hear you're going to school. What are you thinking about doing? And I said, I'm 38. I don't really know. I was going to do psychology. And he said, if you became a nurse, I would teach you everything that I know. And I was like, okay, this is a lot of money, first of all. And I'm very passionate about it. So I opted to go to nursing school. And here I am now 16 years later, working in plastics and aesthetics. And I have my own practice now. And I love helping women and empowering anyone that I can come in touch with.
Lovely, and thank you for sharing. So let's talk a little bit about Our Skin Aesthetics. Can you I guess you told us a little bit about your inspiration to launch it, but what makes your approach different in the aesthetics world?
It was really important for me to create sort of a safe haven for not only patients, but also for creating a culture where my staff felt safe and empowered. Also, a lot of my girls have autonomy, and I'm here to guide them. And I've mentored them for many, many years. So I really wanted to create an empowering atmosphere filled with talented injectors, caring medical assistants, a front desk that's a concierge touch, so that everybody from the first time that you come in contact with us, you feel welcome. And, oftentimes when you are not knowledgeable, there's so much information out there, patients can feel foolish even asking a question. And, no question's a dumb question. And I wanted them to feel, safe to be able to come here and get treatment and build a relationship. It's not transactional for us here at Our Skin. A lot of my patients I've been seeing for 12, 13 years. So that's really important to me.
I mean, love those objectives, but I'm very curious to know, how do you actually do that on the ground? So how do you make the patient feel those in that way? And how do you integrate this kind of empowerment and integrity with your staff? What do you actually get them to do? How does it work?
So from the first moment that you make contact with the front desk, typically either via phone, we have a lot of referrals. They ask questions to, first of all, make sure if they're not requesting me or a specific injector, we want to make sure that you are paired up with an injector that can target exactly what it is that you're looking for. I think one of the appeals for me is I'm older. I've walked many walks of life. I'm now a menopausal woman. I was a personal trainer in fitness for many years, so I have an educational background with that as well for people who are struggling with weight loss. So, but some of my younger injectors are very talented, and they can gear their personality and experience with the younger generation as well. So we want to make sure that from the first moment that you call, that you feel welcomed, and that we're interviewing you to make sure that we set you up for success. And, we offer complimentary consultations. A lot of people aren't doing that anymore in the industry. We offer complimentary. You can come in if you want treatment that day. That's wonderful. If you don't, we're here to answer any questions to make sure that we put you on the right treatment plan. Again, I don't think that it's one and done. I like to do an assessment, and then we figure out if you've got a goal in mind, either a timeline or a certain objective. And then you make your appointment and you come on in and you're greeted by my front desk staff. They get up, they greet you. They're not just hiding behind a desk. They typically know your name. If you're a long-standing patient, they know a little bit about your life. And then my medical assistant, you're not waiting in a waiting room. They whisk you into the treatment room immediately, and then they're taking photos, asking questions, and then they come back and relay that to me, and then I'm able to go in and treat. And then you get follow-up phone calls, text messages. Once you walk out the door, that's not the end of the journey for us. We want to make sure that you're satisfied. If it's a little bit more of a difficult treatment or a highly vascular area, like if I do a nose or under eyes, I like for my patients to be followed up the next day just to make sure that their bruising is all normal within normal limits. So it's really, it's a production.
Very high level customer care, client care. I really like it. You actually mentioned injectables a moment ago, and I think there's often a lot of confusion around injectables versus skincare. How do you guide clients in understanding what they really need?
So my belief is it's combination therapy, Dr. Greenland. I don't, especially coming from a heavily years in the background of plastics. I would see somebody come in and get a facelift, and yes, they're a little bit lifted and tighter. However, they still have skin textural and integrity issues with that elasticity that needs to be worked on. So I believe that, it's not just an injectable, which can be your hyaluronic acids. We're seeing a lot of biostimulators, which is your Sculptra, your Radiesse being implemented into the practice of aesthetics medicine. So there's multiple different modalities, but I do believe that you have to take care of the exterior layer of that skin so that you have a nice luminosity and glow to the skin to enhance anything, injectable wise that you're receiving also.
No, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. That's really helpful. What trends are you noticing most right now in the medical aesthetic space?
I believe with a lot of weight loss, here in the States, we're seeing a lot of the GLP-1s, which are, for those that don't know the terminology, GLP-1s, that's your Ozempics, your Mounjaro, some of those injectables. Now they're starting to phase in some oral tabs that you can take also, and that's for weight loss. And what we're seeing with those is that people have, especially so my bodybuilding and previous personal training can kind of come into this, where we would be losing weight, but it's usually on a gradual progression. So your skin elasticity has time to kind of adapt. But when you have quick weight loss, you're going to lose a lot of that elasticity to the skin. So we're seeing a lot more sag and skin laxity on those weight loss patients. So I think the trend is going to regenerative medicine, meaning your biostimulators, which would be Sculptra, stimulating your own collagen, and then Radiesse, which is a Kaha product. It's got a biostimulator as well as a gel carrier in it to help stimulate your collagen to rebuild. So I think we're seeing a lot more of regenerative medicine in the aesthetics industry.
And have you noticed any changes in client expectations in terms of what clients are expecting from you when they turn up?
So that's a really interesting question. I feel like there can be some unrealistic expectations oftentimes with social media. They're looking at photos, and there's a lot of shenanigans that people can play with photos, in the sense that they can edit them, they can put a filter on. The photos can be taken immediately after a patient's been injected. So of course you're going to have some swelling that's also going to attribute towards facial volume. So, people come in with a picture also of either themselves from 20 years ago, or someone that they, an influencer on social media, and say, I want to look like this. And unfortunately, you have to take into consideration what your own normal features are. Like, I'm never going to have Angelina Jolie lips. I'm not born with that structure. No matter how much filler we could ever pump into my lips, I'm not going to have that look. So you have to explain to the patient that, yes, it's a beautiful look, but that doesn't mean that it's also going to look lovely on you. I think that what's important to me to convey to my patients is the aesthetics industry was originally developed as an enhancement. You come in, you do a neurotoxin to relax the wrinkles, you get a laser treatment to treat the integrity of the skin, and then you do fillers to replace that volume that either occurs through weight loss or the aging process. So I think that I'm digress, but I think it's important to make sure that you are educating the patient and explaining what your rationale is for the treatment that you're advising them, so that they'll have a realistic expectation. And then at the end of the day, Dr. Greenland, there's moments where I just have a patient and they're like, well, I want to look like that anyways. And that's where I have to put on my professional hat, and maybe I'm not the provider for that patient, that I'm going to give them an unrealistic look, and they can go down the street and they can get that look from another injector. Did I kind of answer that?
Thank you. That's great. I guess that, you're in an industry which is rapidly evolving. There's always innovations and new techniques. What are the things that are most exciting you right now, or things that are kind of on the horizon that are coming your way?
So that would be your niche, which is functional and regenerative medicine. The States, we have a lot of cap on what the FDA will allow us to use. And I'm a big believer in peptides. I love and have used BPC 157 for many, many years for inflammation. I love it post-surgery for healing. It was originally on the market for people with Crohn's and gut health issues. And I think that, our microbiome and our gut health really can attribute to our hormones and to the aging process. I also, there's GHKCU, some of the copper peptides. There's so many things that are available, NAD, glutathione, that I think can really help just make us, not even so much anti-aging, because again, I don't want to look 25, but I just don't want to get out of bed and have all that joint pain. And, I'm starting to think more longevity, movement, staying strong so that, I've got good bone health, all of that. So I think that I think functional and regenerative medicine is, integrating a little bit more into the aesthetics industry. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I'm obviously a functional medicine person, so this all completely is my language and what I like to hear. The trouble for us is that we don't have access to quite as many things as you do in the States. So, for instance, peptides, very, very limited. There's very many of them haven't been approved over here, so we can't even use peptides to the same level. And this is really frustrating. I've done a lot of training in peptides in the States, and yet I can't use it on my doorstep. But all the other things that you talk about are very much part of my bread and butter. I like to have a holistic approach to helping patients and looking at all the tools I have in my box from a dietary and lifestyle point of view, targeted supplementation where appropriate, to really make sure that we're covering all the bases and treating them at the root cause.
Right. I mean, just think what cortisol, I had a stressful holiday. My father passed. He was on hospice for a couple of weeks, and I got up the day after he passed, and the scale, I was up 7 pounds. Now, I know I didn't gain 7 pounds of fat and adipose tissue in, a 1 week period. It was inflammation, cortisol. My stress level was skyrocketed. Again, I'm, a menopausal female. I've been on HRT for the last 3 years. There's reports that are going back and forth now that, estrogen may not cause, I don't want to say anything that, in stone, but there are now studies that are reflecting that, cancers are not necessarily attributed towards or a higher risk for women who are taking hormone replacement therapy. So, I'm hoping that there's going to be more studies that's going to go into women's health, even for a female to get testosterone in the States prescribed. We have to be diagnosed as hyposexual. So if a man goes into the physician's office and their testosterone's low, they automatically can get a script and their insurance is covering it. For females, that's not always necessarily true. So I'd like to see that, there's a little bit more touching on hormone replacement as well for both men and women, because I think that men go through, I call it manopause as opposed to menopause, but they experience things just like we do.
For sure. I mean, the andropause is still a much untalked about subject, but it's getting better. I mean, I've seen quite a few clinics popping up in the UK to help men with this problem, and they are using a more holistic approach. They're not just reaching for testosterone as their first line. They are looking at weight and inflammation and oxidative stress and sleep and all the things that really, really matter to try and treat them more holistically, to see whether they can get testosterone to come back online without necessary recourse to, testosterone injectables or what have you. So totally get it. I think you've spoken in other interviews about bringing ethics and giving back to the aesthetics industry. What does that look like in practice for you?
Yeah, so my injectors here have worked with me we pretty much have all been together for at least 5 years. My injectors were either a patient of mine or a medical assistant, and I had the opportunity to mentor them, which, I always feel like I walk away from those situations also growing and being better for the opportunity. And so, I'd like to give back, and I have nursing students come in, they can shadow me. There's opportunities that, you can come in if you're thinking about getting into this industry, that I'll sit down and have a conversation with you, because I think that the view is, right now, especially since the pandemic, people want to get out of bedside nursing and go into something that they think is maybe a little bit more glamorous. And, that's really not always the point. I mean, yes, there's days that, we get to look a little bit, more attractive, but we're also, there's days I'm in the trench and I'm doing a laser and I'm just sweating. There's anything but looking attractive. And it's a lot of hand holding in this industry that we have to do with patients, because there's a lot of psychological that goes along with the aesthetics industry. So, I like to sit down with my girls that I'm mentoring or that are shadowing with me and really just explain, the amount of care and listening. I think that especially in healthcare, there is not always the ability for, and I understand that it is time constraints also, but we build that into my schedule so that I'm able to sit down with every single patient and have a conversation with them for a good 5 to 10 minutes before I'm treating them, because it also gives me a little bit of an insight as to what's going on with them. So, giving back is, I try to do a lot of involvement in the community, of always making sure that I'm educated, making sure that my team is educated, supporting also other business owners. I don't look at our community as competition. I try to strive for unity in the community and creating, that we're much stronger as a whole than we are as individuals. I'm not really intimidated by, what's the word that I'm looking for, Dr. Greenland? See, it's early in the morning. I'm still drinking my coffee. Competition. I'm not intimidated by competition. I think it only makes you stronger. And I think that it also makes you have to put on your thinking cap, because sometimes we get in a field and we can kind of coast. And I like to be stimulated and have someone challenge me so that I have to either search out the answer if I don't know it. And then also I have it's not with the aesthetic community, but I have a scholarship program that I like to give to somebody who is looking in the healthcare industry, specifically for someone who is divorced or a single parent who's looking to further their education so that they can provide for themselves and their family. So I have the Raquel Merlini Pay It Forward scholarship. So I went through a horrible divorce and had to pick myself up by the bootstraps. And if I can support and encourage somebody else that there is hope and that you can get out there and give yourself a second chance, it's possible.
Lovely. So you're obviously running a very busy, successful practice. What does a typical week look like for you? And I guess there probably is no typical week, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how you balance, the clinical work, the business kind of growth work, the mentorship, the mission-driven work. You're juggling lots of hats.
Right? I know. As a business owner, you don't really realize it. I work 4 days a week. I'm here usually about 8:30 to 5 o'clock. I'll see anywhere from 15 to 22 patients a day. Thursdays I take as an administrative day. Today's a Thursday. So that's typically when I either try to get in social media, meeting with my staff, my patient coordinator, seeing, where we're at with either like Valentine's Day is coming up in February, or when we were doing Christmas, the holidays, what we were putting together to make sure that patients were educated on what was happening here at Our Skin and not missing any specials or activities that we're doing. So I think as a business owner, you're definitely wearing multiple hats, not just because I'm in front of the injectable treatment chair, but then I have to be behind the chair, also making sure that our business is functioning and also that my team is happy and that we're keeping our culture here where, it's appealing that everybody wants to, be here and come to work also. So it's a lot, especially with the demand on marketing too. So, I've been pretty established, but I have younger, new injectors who are trying to build. And, there's a lot that goes into that marketing aspect.
I hear you. So you've talked a lot about the high level of client care that you offer and this really kind of caring, holistic approach and looking after them throughout the journey. I guess that's something you would say is working really well. What else is working well from a business side of things in terms of how you deliver what you do?
This may sound silly, but It's as simple as we all really like each other. So we come to work every single day, and it's a joy it's not like you're pulling in the parking lot and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. And then, when you're working with the public also, you have to give a lot of yourself. So that can be emotionally draining when you're listening to somebody who's going through a divorce, or, they're having difficulty with their children, or perhaps they're in a transitional period with their work life balance. So we're having to be caretakers of those patients all day long. So the last thing you want to do is then walk out of a heavy treatment room and then look at your coworker and be like, oh no. So we all genuinely really love each other and care for each other. Tonight we're coming over my home, and we're going to do vision boards. So we're going to put together what this is our third year of doing this exercise, and we all bring over magazines, and we start cutting and pasting. And it's also an opportunity for me to hear, one just had a baby, one might be trying to get pregnant, one's getting married, one wants to buy a home. So it gives me insight also to see where my injectors are, both mentally and where their career path is. So I guess the long and short of it is culturally, we just really all enjoy each other. So that's what makes our vibe here a little bit different. It's powerful.
I don't think that sounds silly at all. I think that's an amazing achievement to actually have a working environment where the interpersonal dynamics of the workers are all completely harmonious. I think that's a major, major achievement. Congratulations that you've created that space. Because let's face it, I mean, how many people are unhappy at work?
Oh my goodness. And get 10 women together. I mean, that's, yeah. So I don't know, I can't take the credit for it. They're all individually amazing people, and they're passionate about their patient care and passionate about the industry. And it just, it works. It's that perfect recipe.
And what are some of the challenges of running the business that you do? Or are there any sort of bottlenecks or things you've had to overcome or things you're working on to overcome to get through?
I think I always feel like I should be doing more, right? Like, what can we do to grow? Functional medicine, where's the industry going? I feel like I should be putting my efforts into that, but then it's hard to, there's not enough time in the day, I guess, there's so much information out there, picking the correct information, following who might be the best educator or the best conference, financially also picking and choosing, where do you put your resources at? There's so many different aspects of this industry. So I guess for me, I want to do it all, and there's not always enough time. So I have to give myself grace and, say you're one person. And we've only been, May 1st will be our third year open. So, I have to take that into consideration at moments too, where I'm like, we should be doing so much more. And I'm like, okay, but we just expanded last year. We took over another 1,000 square feet. So my other injector, she was at the hospital. She was a medical assistant. I've now been working with her so that she's up and running. So, I've got to nurture each individual here. So you tell me, how are you doing it? I could use some advice.
Well, my next question was going to be, you mentioned time. Time, that's an amazingly scarce resource, and we can't create more of it. So I was just curious to know what the biggest time drains are for you, and then maybe I've got some ideas.
Would probably be the 9 to 5. I could probably almost use another half day for administrative work, but also, I'm still kind of the engine that's pushing our skin, forward. It's on my back. So, maybe carving out, I was in school last year, and my father was ill. So I really realized afterwards, my patient coordinator said, you haven't done a social media informational post in like 3 months, and your patients all love that. And I sat back, and I honestly, Dr. Greenland, hadn't realized that that had occurred. And I said, I think I was a little depressed and overwhelmed with what was happening. And so I neglected some aspects. I could go in and treat my patient, still make sure that we were doing our administrative work, but I wasn't doing the extras, which is the social media. So, I'm working, we just hired a marketing company. So that's new to us. And I have a social media girl who will come in and film. So we're setting designated days. So that takes a little bit of that creative aspect that I don't always have to be thinking, oh my goodness, because I don't want to do the TikTok videos where I'm dancing like a fool. And no offense to anybody, that's great. I just don't want to do it. I've done it. I don't want to do it anymore.
Got it. I mean, for me, the admin is the thing which I've tried to remove myself from as much of as possible. The way I've tried to do that is to leverage tech and AI now. I'm using a lot of AI in the business to just take some of that kind of real grudge and drudgery out of things that can be done in a more automated way. Because I can't, I still need my clinical time. It's the admin, which is the time that I don't enjoy doing that stuff. So for me, it's been about technology and really being very kind of strict about what do I absolutely need to do, or what could I give to somebody else to do, or what could I use technology to do. And that's how I've kind of solved the scarcity problem of time.
Yes, and I think that that's a really good point. I'm fortunate that I have a patient coordinator who's my right-hand person, Kayla, and we call her the underboss. And she has taken a lot of the admin work, and she's good at it. So I'm not like yourself. I'm realizing, I need to hire the right people and put them in the right positions, and set them up for success, which will set me up for success. So I'm working on it.
So if you had a magic wand and you could fix one thing in the business tomorrow, what would that be?
Integrity. I feel like the industry is losing some of its integrity. That aesthetics is medicine. We should know anatomy. You should understand safe practice. You should have safe practice protocols in place. And I feel like, yes, the business is lucrative and there can be money that can be made in it. However, I think at the end of the day, you should be, we take an oath to do no harm. You should be moving with integrity with everything that you do.
I hear you. I really hear you. So this is a wider thing about the industry in general. Is there anything that you've done? I mean, you sound like you do. You sound like you're a person who really implements integrity into the business. But is there anything that you feel that you still need to do to kind of reach that goal?
Honestly, I mean, my thing is I want to be able to sleep at night in good conscience and know that I did the best care and provided the best care for my patient on that particular day. Do I think that there's always room for improvement? Yes. But I really feel like everything we do here is with integrity and the patient first.
Amazing. So if your business saw a massive influx in clients tomorrow, how would you cope? Would anything break, or would you have the kind of infrastructure to mop up that massive demand?
No, I think that we would thrive. Again, I have my team is amazing, and they I don't believe that I've set anyone up for failure. I believe that they are all suited for the positions that they have. One of my medical assistants is going to be retiring. So, I think we're kind of looking at how is that going to look for us. So, but we've been preparing for it, and we have a plan in place that for on the more hectic days, my injectors are very fortunate because they have a medical assistant. However, because they were my medical assistant first and I was a medical assistant, we have the capability to set up our rooms for ourselves. So, and they're knowledgeable enough to know how to reconstitute their own products and make do if we have a shortage. So to answer your question, our infrastructure, I feel pretty strong. If we were to grow, I may need to add another medical assistant. We have a flex time person who works at the desk. She's also an esthetician. So while she's growing her practice within ours, she fills in at the desk, so that, because I also, my patient coordinator is amazing, but I don't want her to burn out either. So I believe our infrastructure is pretty strong.
Amazing. So what's next for you? What's next for the business? Do you have any plans for the next sort of 6 to 12 months in what you're doing?
Yes. So I have been looking a little bit at the hormones. I've decided that I need to stick with what I'm good at, and I can outsource that. The functional medicine, I'd like to get more into peptides because I believe so passionately in them. I think the GLP-1s are definitely, a great accessory for those who are challenged, but I'm still a little old school in the fact that I believe diet and nutrition. So, I'd like to implement that a little bit more with guidance. And our brand recognition, just making sure that people are familiar with what Our Skin's philosophy is, and having people be a little bit more familiar with that brand.
Well, I wish you very well with it all. Raquel, this has been such an insightful conversation. Really great to hear about you and Our Skin Aesthetics, your work, your views on the industry, what you're seeing in terms of trends and expectations. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Greenland, for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure, and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to following you in the industry as well.